India yesterday had a lotus to protest moment when Joe Biden, who's running from the Democratic Party for the US elections of 2020, he's running against President Donald Trump. He picked Kamala Harris as his running mate. He picked her as a VP. And suddenly there was so much of an excitement about the entire Indian origins of Kamala Harris, given her mother, Shamala Gopalan Harris, was a cancer researcher and a civil rights activist. She was born in India and she passed away in 2019. So everyone was suddenly excited that, whoa, we have someone with the possibility of being in the White House who has Indian origins. And that excited a lot of people in the mainstream media. And there were articles and articles about how Kamala Harris could be a game changer for India US relations and so on. But is it all about that? What meets the eye really? Is it really about Kamala Harris's Indian origins? We'll talk about that in Swarajya's standpoint. I just have two issues to address here. The one, the identity Kamala Harris identifies herself with. Is it the African American identity which she took from her father, or is it the Indian American identity which took from her mother? And the second aspect is what it really means for India, the Biden Harris combination, what it really means for India, what it means if we have a Democratic president in the Oval Office in 2021. Now, the first aspect, that of her identity. Now, a lot of you might think that Kamala Harris has been chosen to woo the Indian American audience that is somehow very close to Donald Trump, or so is the perception. Well, here's the fun fact. Kamala Harris's parents, they divorced when she was 7. She's been living with her mother ever since. And in a lot of media interviews, she's made it clear that she owes a lot to her Indian-born mother. She still has her Indian extended family, which lives in India. In fact, some of the media channels yesterday were interviewing her uncle and cousins and whatnot. So she has this Indian lineage. She has that Indian connect. That's not uh, any surprise. But does she own up to it really? Now, if Trump is to be believed, he calls her phony. He calls her entire identity choice as a phony because he says that she chooses the identity which suits her professional goals or political goals. Now, let's see why Biden may have picked her up. If she's an Indian American, she's also tracing an African American lineage from her father's side. And that is what must have got Biden excited, who wants to really get the black votes out, especially after the Black Lives Matter protests, which we saw very, very recently. So the entire atmosphere in the United States, it's very polarized right now. So for Democrats to have Kamala Harris on the electoral roll, that would have that will help perhaps Biden get more black votes when the elections come up. The second thing, even if Kamala Harris's Indian American identity is more prominent in her personal life, in her political life, it is the African American identity that has prevailed. So even though our mainstream media may go gaga with the fact that, oh, she identifies herself as Indian American and so on, it's her African American identity that has prevailed. And that is why Trump calls her a phony. That's why Trump says that she just chooses the identity she wants to choose at any given point. Now, black leaders and black people, the people who come out over, they'll support Harris wholeheartedly. One, because of their problems against the current regime of Donald Trump, and other because they resonate with Kamala Harris because of her identity. Now, talking of the Indian Americans debate, which are the two areas, which is the one area where the Indian Americans are based very, very strongly. It's California. And it's already a democratic state in the sense that it's already as good to the Democrats as Gujarat is perhaps to the BJP. So there's nothing really for Democrats to gain much by having Kamala Harris play out her Indian American identity. But of course, the 2016 elections showed us that states can flip with narrow margins, and states where Indian Americans are there, they might also be interested in voting for Kamala Harris. And that is where the little challenge might be there for Donald Trump. But for one, it's her African American identity that's going to do most of the talking and not the Indian American identity. So that's one aspect we need to get out of the way. The second aspect, what it really means for India. Well, for one, Kamala Harris is no Bernie Sanders. She's not taken very significant stands against certain domestic issues in India, say Article 370 or Kashmir or even the CAA. She has been very vocal about human rights, about internet connectivity in Kashmir. She said, in fact, in an interview that we're watching the developments in Kashmir probably from the standpoint of what was going on in terms of the connectivity. So tomorrow, if you have someone like her in the White House, or do you have someone like her dealing in the Indian-US relations, You might face problems on that front. India might face problems on that front. Just last year in December, she tweeted against our foreign minister, Dr. Jaishankar, refusing to meet a congresswoman who had raised a, a move against the Article 370 revoking in the US Congress. So when Dr. Jaishankar refused to meet her, she actually raised her voice that why was it happening? Why was the meeting being refused by India's foreign minister? So while Kamala Harris has not been very vocal about the internal issues of India, and she might be seen as more friendlier towards the issues like H-1B visa and so on which even Trump has been very fickle. The truth is that the Biden-Harris combination might not be that good for India in the long terms. She would, of course, reach out to China. She would, of course, reach out to other players in the Asian subcontinent. But even then, to just assume that because of a Indian American identity, which only prevails in a personal life, not political life, India may have a friendlier vice president or a regime in the White House, it would be incorrect to think so. For Kamala Harris, the African American identity in the US domestic angle does not play out too well, because from her days as the Attorney General of California, there will be a lot of problems for her too because of the baggage she carries from her law enforcement days, from her days of being a district attorney or an attorney general. So for Kamala Harris, the journey is not going to be that simple. But for Indian media and the Indian audience, having Kamala Harris in the race is not going to make much of a difference. Perhaps it might make a negative difference in the long run. And that's what should matter to us. Thank you.